Topic: Outer space and stars. 1. Have you ever learned about outer space and stars? Yeah, mostly through school and random documentaries online. When I was younger, I went through a phase where I was completely fascinated by black holes, galaxies, and the possibility of extraterrestrial life. I remember lying awake at night thinking about how enormous the universe is and suddenly feeling emotionally unstable over the fact that humans are basically microscopic compared to space. 2. Do you like science fiction movies? Why? Yeah, I absolutely love them. Actually, my favorite movie of all time is Interstellar. What I really enjoy about this sci-fi blockbuster is that it's not just visually stunning. It also dives into deep themes like time, human connection, and survival instinct, so the movie lingers in your head long after the credits roll. 3. Do you want to know more about outer space? Definitely. I think outer space is one of those topics that instantly makes people realize how little we actually know. The idea that there might still be undiscovered planets or even unknown life forms somewhere out there is both exciting and slightly terrifying. At the same time, I feel like the more humans learn about the universe, the more existential crises we collectively develop. 4. Do you want to go into outer space in the future? Absolutely not. Exploring space sounds exciting in movies, but the reality feels terrifying to me. I already panic when the Wi-Fi disconnects for 5 minutes, so I honestly don't think I'd survive floating around in complete silence millions of kilometers away from Earth. I'd much rather stay safely at home, watch space documentaries, and admire astronauts from a very comfortable distance.
Topic: Science. 1. Do you like science? Yeah, especially chemistry. Back when I was at school, chemistry was one of the few subjects that made me feel genuinely curious instead of just stressed. I liked the fact that it explained everyday things, like why iron rusts, why soap removes grease, or why overcooked food sometimes smells burnt. It made ordinary life feel a bit more interesting somehow. 2. When did you start to learn about science? Technically since primary school, but it became much more fascinating in secondary school when we finally got to do experiments in the chemistry lab. I still remember how excited the whole class got when the teacher mixed chemicals that suddenly changed color or produced smoke. Looking back, we were basically entertained by controlled explosions. 3. Which science subject is interesting to you? Chemistry. Without a doubt, I enjoy how logical it is, but at the same time it still feels surprisingly connected to daily life. For example, even cooking involves chemical reactions like caramelization or fermentation. So chemistry doesn't just stay inside textbooks, it's literally happening in our kitchens every day. 4. What kinds of interesting things have you done with science? I've become weirdly obsessed with fermentation over the past few years. So I've actually spent quite a lot of time experimenting with homemade kimchi and yogurt. After many failed attempts, I finally feel like I've mastered the art of making them properly. What I love most is that it's basically biochemistry happening in your kitchen. Tiny microorganisms are transforming the flavor, texture, and acidity over time, and thankfully, the final products turned out really good. Even my Asian parents keep complimenting them. So at least my experiments didn't poison anyone. 5. Do you like watching science TV programs? Yeah, especially chemistry-related documentaries or videos explaining how products are made. I once spent nearly an hour watching a video about how instant noodles are manufactured, which honestly made me question my life choices a little. But I genuinely enjoy seeing the science behind everyday products. 6. Do Vietnamese people often visit science museums? Not very often, I think. In Vietnam, people usually see museums as educational places rather than somewhere entertaining to spend the weekend. I feel like science museums would attract more visitors if they had more interactive experiments instead of just long written explanations on the walls.
Topic: Jokes and comedies. 1. Are you good at telling jokes? I'd say I have a pretty specific sense of humor. I'm more into wordplay, sarcasm, and inside jokes rather than telling obvious punchlines. So not everyone understands my jokes immediately. Sometimes I'll say something I personally find hilarious. And the room just goes completely silent. Emotionally devastating, honestly. 2. Do your friends like to tell jokes? A few of them do. But the funniest person around me is definitely my best friend, aka my husband. He's naturally witty and really good at making spontaneous jokes in everyday situations. To be honest, part of the reason I fell for him was probably his sense of humor. I've always found smart people who can crack me up really attractive. 3. Do you like to watch comedies? Yeah, a lot. I especially enjoy sitcoms like Friends and The Office because the humor feels really natural and relatable instead of overly forced. I also like comedy that makes you think a little rather than just throwing random jokes at the audience every few seconds. The awkward interactions and subtle sarcasm in The Office are honestly peak comedy to me. 4. Have you ever watched a live show? Not yet, unfortunately. I'd genuinely love to attend a stand-up comedy show someday because I think the atmosphere must feel incredible in person. But tickets can be pretty pricey. So at this stage of my life, I usually prioritize more practical things instead of splurging on entertainment. Being an adult is basically just saying, maybe next time, to things you want.